No, yours should be on. As long as you have a green light on, I'll turn it. All right, we appreciate everybody coming. It says 3 o'clock by my watch and by the clock on the wall. We had a lot of people to respond by email after we sent out the reminder yesterday. Everybody should have got something in their email that looked kind of like a party theme. If anybody needs a copy here, I've got some extra copies. If you want an extra copy of that. Okay, what I've done is a real rough draft of what's before you, but as Chris and I were going on, that last line on your sheet that looks like this, just scratch out that last line. That's not a good number. Oh, I didn't hand them out yet?
The 389?
Just look at the back.
Well, it should be, I had a single page.
Turn over that back page.
I don't have
Dr. Sherry, just turn that back page over.
Okay.
That's one. It's a trick.
So what I'm going to do is go through this. When we had the points, we had 3 points for most important, 2 points for lesser important, and 1 point for not as important. On the top page there, you see site prep and engineering is automatic. Now, I did hear a lot of people talking about the engineering fee, but until we bid this out, it's estimated. But I did shrink that down to $48.5 because we're not doing the stage, we're not doing the amphitheater, so I think that's probably a more realistic number there. Street lights came up with 12 points, parking lot came up with 14, site prep was at 6, but that's automatic anyway. Restrooms 21, so restrooms score the highest on the priority. Campsites 15, benches 9, covered picnic shelter 9, horseshoe pit 6, and horseshoe pit is something that could be added pretty much at any time, I think. The ropes adventure course scored 13. So down on your bottom numbers there, the one in blue, the 346,800, that includes the site prep, the engineering, street lights, parking lot, restrooms, and campsites. It does not include anything else on the bottom of the list. The 421 number includes all in the blue, and that I just mentioned, plus the ropes course. That comes to $421,000, and we did get another $5,000 donation, so we're at $385. So roughly that's about $31,000 short for that 421 number. The 460,960 includes everything with 9 points or above. So the covered picnic shelter, benches, everything. Reason I had to scratch out that last number, I got really hopeful there and had made an error in calculation and thinking if we covered the picnic shelters out, we could actually get the ropes course and everything in blue in there for $389. We can't. So that's kind of where the discussion goes from now. The fishing pier only got 8, so the bottom 4 items are pretty much right now on standby and not part of what we hope to bid out and get constructed. The water feature is not listed because the water feature is automatic. The water feature is coming out of utility. It's not coming out of this $385,000. That's automatic. Also, the RTP was a separate grant. The trails, we were listed in the PARTIF to try to help us leverage the PARTIF grant, but that's going to happen regardless, so we don't have to worry about that. So 2 features that are going to happen regardless are the trails and the water feature. So I guess right now, we just try to, if you have any questions about that, and we'll try to go from there.
Just tell me, in yellow here you have donations, fundraisers. What is this yellow stuff here? On the bottom of source of matching fund.
Don't pay attention to anything of the yellow. That was for my copy when I was doing the PARP application, kind of highlight something for me, so I wouldn't pay attention. Biggest thing is it says pending. So that was in the grant side of it.
So that's cross out.
Yeah, I wouldn't pay attention.
Yes. Anybody else need a pen or anything? We've got some extras.
Okay.
Just while you're thinking there,
are there any pledges outstanding?
there's some pledges outstanding. I did not include them in this number because I only included cash on hand. There's probably, Chris asked me earlier, there's probably less than $20,000 in outstanding pledges. But I'm not counting that until it comes in, and we usually don't send out a letter until December or January for the annual pledges, you know, try to get tax time.
And there are some people that pledged over 3 years, like, who's our friend, Alex. You have that on the list?
We do not have this in this number, only what we collected. So
No, I know that, but
we
you have it
collected-
down on the pledge?
We have her pledges, and I think we collected one check. I don't think we collected
Yeah, I
seven.
think she gave one.
She gave one, and probably this December we'll get the second check.
But
And
you-
then Frank gave one check.
I've got one coming
We
too.
got one coming, so
I'm afraid they get bigger each time.
that's good. I like that.
He also does ear read. This, at the last meeting, the TDA, did that all?
The TDA did confirm their contribution of $50,000. Craig,
Now,
that meeting too, I think, yeah.
I kind of came late to the dance on this one. Explain to me this water feature.
The water feature, there's a well on property.
And the well works all the time or only part of the time?
Only when we need it. We turn it on when we need it.
Okay, so how is the water feature going to work if the well's not running?
Okay, well, the well will be running for the water feature to work. We'll probably run it from like 6:30 a.m. to 6 p.m., so it'll be on a timer, so it will work, and mainly during the summer months unless we need it otherwise.
Is it like a splash park or is
It's not a
it
splash
a
pad,
fountain
and
or?
I didn't bring pictures of that today. We can email you pictures out. It basically looks like a mill building with a green door, and then on the back of it, you've got stone work, you've got water flowing out, and then we're gonna have about a 90-foot meandering kind of concrete walk. You can splash your feet in it.
Mhm.
That's about the extent of it.
And how far away is that from Buckeye Lake?
It has to go to the creek. You can't go
Oh,
into
the
the
creek,
lake.
right, but
It's
I
about
mean,
90 feet from the creek is,
Okay,
is
from the
where
creek.
Now, straight, if you went as a crow flies or straight, is only about 40 feet or it's a shorter distance from the creek. But because of having meandering, that's where the 90 feet comes in.
I just had people questioning playing in the creek, which
can-
is the drinking water. Would that encourage them to then go down to Buckeye Lake and
Not even,
play in the lake?
Not any more than normal. I think,
yeah.
you know, if anything, maybe some more added signage. Because they can actually still play after the bridge. If you're looking and see where the sandbars are,
Mm-hmm.
that's to the point where you can't get out. So once like the creek starts to turn into the lake.
Okay.
But yeah, right now there's actually no sign saying beyond this point, you know, no access. But maybe that's something that we'd have to do.
Okay.
We probably, signage is a good idea. But the state, we've had that question come up. It's okay to play in the creek. It's not okay to swim in the lake. But they still let us have kayaks and canoes on the lake.
But it has to be your kayaks
It
and
has to be
canoes. It
ours.
can't be outside sources.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's a good question. So signage is a nominal expense, so we could add additional signage. That's not a huge deal.
Well, you'd like a few comments from me?
I think so. Go ahead, Dr. Shea.
I'd appreciate and like everything you're doing here. I think we ought to get started putting something on there. I like what you have on year one, and I would hope that some of the year two stuff could be done in year one. I think whatever you do, I'm in favor of going first class. If you're going to build campsites, build good campsites. Even if you have to wait for a while for more money to come in for some of these other things, just make sure that what you do is going to be appreciated by everybody, and they don't come and say, oh, they just cut corners here and there, it's no fun. I spoke to my wife, and our feeling is if you go with the restrooms and you go with the parking and you go with the campsites, you can and make room for expansion at all times. If you see the campsites, you may want to start with 4 or 5, and if they're going well, make sure you plan for expansion to put more in, if that's a successful thing. Make sure you make room for the road course if you feel everybody wants that, and that there's a place for expansion there. So when you go within your budget of what you have, I would go first class, do it right, prepare the land well, that land has a lot of gullies and valleys and flooding spots, and so it has to be prepared well. And I congratulate you all on what you've done so far, but let's get started, that's all I ask.
Well,
I don't know if I'll be around.
Well, after the day, I mean, we just kind of wanted to get consensus among this group. Council's already given the authority to move forward. So after the day, I plan on meeting with the engineers and go ahead and get the bid documents ready based on this meeting and go forward. My plan is, or my hope is that by April, May, all this is under construction. I'm hoping the water feature is actually under construction in the fall.
It's
Even though
hard,
it will be used in the
I
spring.
think we wore out our fundraising
Mm-hmm.
until you start building. When they see things go down on the ground,
That'll make a difference.
people then may say, oh, I gave before and I see it's coming to fruition, I'll give again. So the sooner you can get started and go first class with the restrooms was a high price. I was stunned. I don't know where these luxurious toilets are.
I've got some drawings here. It had a hip roof on it. John Merritt has done, he's an architect, he's
I
a
like John.
retired building inspector. He did some sketches there. I know it sounds high, but the only way I think you come out cheaper if you do a scout toilet, and you don't want a scout toilet down
If I tell you to go first class, don't give me.
there. But
These are hooked into the system.
they're hooked into the town's water and sewer system.
And there are also restrooms and showers.
Restrooms and showers.
So that's
Does
your
everybody
addition.
feel we need showers there?
If you've got a
With a camping.
campground, then people are gonna
You
wanna
gotta
have a shower. I mean, they can primitive shower, but if you're talking first class, then
First class.
Well, if you don't,
They'll be happy to camp there.
it should be a nice campsite. I mean, you know, like I said, I do a lot of camping with scouts. Unless you're on the Appalachian Trail or something, if you're doing a car camping weekend for 2 nights, it's good to have a shower to go to. And
I think it's.
Could I add a couple of points
yes,
that
sir.
relates to what Dr. Shane was just speaking on? And I'm saying this because I know that a lot of things in phases, and phases are okay. If it's a clean phase, a clean phase, and a clean phase. But when you have 3 or 4 phases on a site, and they're all somewhat intertwined with infrastructures and parking and bathrooms and things like that, you can find real easy in phase 2 and phase 3 what was going to be 50 grand, instead of 80 grand or 100 grand, because you're fixing something you're tearing up because you built it out of sequence. And that's the one reason why I didn't give a 1, 2, 3 or 3, 4 of those pointing systems, because what sometimes you want needs to be viewed from what you can do without financially damaging, something that you did earlier. And so when you're getting with your engineers, have someone there to lead and guide that person, because once you get it, you'll think that's what you should be doing. And as a developer who's done mega big projects and smaller projects, these overlapping phases really have to be coordinated properly. Or you pay a lot of money for it the second time, in the second and third phase.
No, we agree on that. And just like on engineering and the site prep, if we're not going to have covered picnic shelters in at this point, we're still going to have the past design of where they go. So when they come in, they'll not be left out. So that's an important point. The low ropes course, we'll have dimensions for that. We'll give our engineer dimensions and say, this area is for the low ropes course, even though it's not included in this first phase. So
And don't forget your potential needed heavy equipment access. Sometimes you need more than 5 feet. You need heavy equipment, 10 feet, 12 feet, to do some of that secondary issues. And every time you do that, I'm telling you, it's financially scary. The extra money you're going to pay for little things you just overlooked earlier.
all right.
We getting any in-kind stuff from the city who would help us on some of that stuff?
Well, we're doing some right now. Some of the rec people are getting ready to clear out the areas for the campsites. Clear it.
Before you do anything, I would like to have a little bit of input into where you're doing. I'd like to see where you're doing all this. Because, I've been scared to death ever since I've been hearing about campsites. We talked about 4 or 5, then I heard about 7 or 8 and all this. And I don't think any of us has even been down there where you're doing anything.
Well, if you want to come look,
We've worked hard to come to meetings and be on things, and nothing against you and Sean, but I think there ought to be a little more deciding where these things go. I mean, you can show us and everything, but this is an important deal, and I just think it needs to be really looked at.
You really need to take into consideration storm drains. I've been down there when there was 12 inches of water coming through that entire site. And I videoed it,
Well, these already up on the hill,
but just when you're designing and developing, know that somewhere there's a lot of water coming down through there.
well, we'll be glad, like I said, when I talk to the engineer, if y'all want to come meet, one or two of you, but all of our campsites, the main area where you drive in now, there's no camping in that parking area. All the campsites are up higher than that in different places. We only, I think with Sean and I, the two Sean's walked out there, there's 4 we're looking at clearing out, right? 1, 2, 3, 4.
We have 4 or 5 taped off, but
Taped off.
I think, yeah, 4.
you're gonna have a path that goes from the parking lot to these.
Yes.
Yeah.
It'll be just a walking path, it won't be anything,
Well, what Frank's talking about, if you're, gotta go in there with a small tractor or something, you need to have room. So if you're gonna do so many to start with, you need to make sure that you don't go in with a tractor after you've gotten everything done to do 2 more on the other end or something. That's kinda,
Yeah, to Fred's point, can we get an updated, I guess the engineer will give us a real map, right?
Yeah, that's the design map. Before we get to this point, you'll have actually building specifications. And if you guys, once we talk to the engineer, I mean, if you want to meet, if we engage an engineer sometime in November, they probably won't have anything to show to this group till January or February, when they're planning, but, conservative, so.
As an aside, what's John Merritt's background? I liked him.
John he sketches,
He told me he was, way back, he was an architect.
he's an architect
also.
in Florida and North Carolina. He's retired now, let me just say that, and it doesn't move as fast when John does it.
Okay.
Trying not to, John's really good at what he does, but to expedite it, we need some additional assistance.
well, what are we gonna need from him? He's already done this, and I didn't understand this one.
You'll have to have the wall specification, the concrete thickness, you'll have to have construction drawings. Those are sketch plans. Those are detailed sketch plans.
What's the new trail? Well, that's the loop, the loop around there. Okay. Isn't that something we could get started on sooner than later?
Yes,
I mean,
I've got a trail build coming.
Right.
The 29th.
And I think that's the very first thing we do.
Well, see, his trails are separate from.
Well, I know, I'm
Yeah,
paying
so
for it and everything, but it's all gotta be within
Mhm.
the park thing, because it comes right through the middle of it.
The main thing that Sean, when he starts doing his trails, we just have to make sure the engineer knows where they're at, so we don't put a feet feature over them.
Have you pretty much got them laid out?
So that's what the trail builder is going to come do. Before, when he looked at it, a year ago, he kind of gave us a guesstimate of how much it costs. This time around, he's actually going to flag it off what the trail will be and give us a hard number.
Okay, then once he flags it off, looking at this pretty picture over here, you're gonna have the ropes course on one side, you're gonna have campsites on another, and this is gonna kind of come through, and it's gonna be an intricate part of the whole program, the loop trail, but other things are gonna be off of this, right?
Mhm.
So I think, we just gotta, the first thing is to figure out where that loop trail's going.
Yep.
And then see how it coincides with whether it's your campsites you have, or, well, eventually with picnic shelters too.
Can they do the trail without a site plan though?
He can, yes, because it's kind of outside of
Yeah,
that.
the trails just take off from the
The
park.
trail's on the other side of the creek mostly, right?
Yes.
I think it's right in the
It's just, it's hard to do without these.
Yeah. That, I guess, the upper side of the quadrant there. If you really look close at it, there's an area where it says there's going to be a trail. That's going to be kind of for the trail builder to really assess that land, because it's extremely steep and rocky in there. Not saying that he couldn't do it, just
To cross the creek, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, that's really,
But see, that's why the engineer is so important. This thing you're seeing here is just design. It's just a concept.
Pretty picture.
Pretty, exactly. It's a pretty picture. It doesn't have distances, it doesn't have elevations, and that's what, after the day, that's what we want to start shooting for.
The associated parking, is it strictly limited to those using the site?
That would be
Or
hikers,
is it open
yeah.
for daily use of others that may be going down to fish?
Well, right now, we wouldn't have any restrictions on it. That's something that, you know, if we have problems, we'll have to do something about it. But right now, it should be open.
So you wouldn't have to be technically using the park overnight or anything?
No.
like that?
No, I wouldn't see it as just being a camper. I'd see it, yeah, if you're just using for trail access, fishing access.
Sorry, I
whatever.
couldn't hear you.
Using park there for trail access. Yeah, trail access, fishing access. So not just camping, but
Yeah, it's a general park.
yeah, absolutely.
We're
Don't-
gonna have to develop a whole set of guidelines for people using this. I mean, just like the campsites and the parking and all those other things. We're gonna have to work real hard to make sure we do it right from the beginning. And have it all in black and white.
Posted as such.
If we have, the only problem, I don't see a huge problem right now, because let's say you start out with 4 campsites. I'm hoping you're only gonna have 1 car per campsite, but let's just say you have 8, 2 cars per campsite. We've got 22 spaces, so that should take care of,
You're expanding, I was working backwards, I was saying, you know, how do you need 22 if it's just isolated and only used for?
no, it's supposed to be, we're looking, this, some people will like this, some people won't. There'll be day trippers there too.
Yeah.
There'll be people who go, I mean, there are people walking around there now without anything really developed.
There's people parking there.
The few times I've gone out there, there'll be 3, 4, 5 folks, either 2 people fishing or a family walking around. So for the initial campsites, we should have ample parking even for people doing other activities. But like I said, if it's like gangbusters and we have 30 or 40 people down there all the time, then we'll have to look for something else going on, which that's what we want. We want people to use it.
So that 385K that we have does not include that 200,000?
It does include the 200.
It does?
Yes.
Okay, so now we're, okay.
The 380 includes the 200 from the town and the 50 from TDA. So
So-
there's about 135 in private donations.
Okay, so that's where this blue stuff is coming in then?
Correct.
That's covering what's above it and the donations that we got in?
Yes.
I'm thinking that if we do the blue part of it, that would be a great way to start it. We'd have some money in the bank and use that for fundraising to be able to go down to the next item on the list, which is the ropes course. Because what we're looking at is a natural park, you know, and ropes course would be a nice addition to it. And if we don't spend all the money at once, then people will say, okay, we're only $40,000 down versus starting from scratch. Just my thoughts on it.
I would say one thing on the rope course. I can get the guy who gave us the quote in the beginning to come out and give me a hard number on what this would cost. He could also even design it as, let's start smaller. Let's say you have 40,000 to use. Do a $40,000 version, but we can grow, expand off that.
Might fit you.
Yes. Yeah, it's being stopped.
You gotta remember, in addition to what you just mentioned, you gotta have the loop trail, that'll be done, and you gotta have the water feature. So that's a good start in addition to this to go with, and we just have to be careful with our money.
Sean's latest email regarding the unfortunate scenario where we did not get the grant again this year, kind of left open the possibility that next year, I mean, kind of give me your clean thought on it.
Clean thought. So again, this is kind of suggested by our rec resource agent, was to get started on the project. Do what you're going to do with the money that we have in hand, and then
Into the project.
And then when we get to a point, but we have to have some recreational aspects. So we couldn't just go and ask for the amphitheater stage. They will not fund that. But if we have more campsites, so now we're developing more, we're expanding on it. Then she said, come back to us for phase 2 of your project and apply for the grant at that point. So
So we can do that next year?
we could do it next year, or we could take a year off and do it. It just kind of,
So there is
there's still
a
hope.
window of opportunity.
We do plan to apply again,
Yeah.
because if we do everything like Kelly was saying in the blue, And then theoretically, 346,000, let's say we have 30-something thousand left. We'll apply for the grant again. We say we still have $30,000 in donations that have not been used. We haven't done the $75,000 rope course or the fishing pier, whatever price that was at. So we will apply again. And whether we skip a year, I don't know. I'll say right now, depending on how this turns out, I don't know if I want to skip a year or not. We were very close to getting the grant last year.
The point I'm making is that we're not hurting ourselves by self-funding some of this to the detriment of getting it in the future. Because some people may be sitting there thinking, oh, it's Beach Mountain, they've already started it, and give it to somebody more needy or whatever. I mean, you can look at that from both sides of that coin.
Here's how I think the only way it can hurt us. If we apply again, for example, and we include the amphitheater and stage, fishing pier and ropes course, whatever we apply for, part of it is 50-50. So if we spend the $340,000 and we've got $40,000 left, and we apply for $300,000 worth of grant, that means we have to match 150. So yes, it has a slight detrimental effect. However, let's say, for example, we apply for the grant, we scratch applying for the amphitheater stage, we only apply for the ropes course, fishing pier, maybe a $100,000 grant. We still have to come up with 50, but we've got 40 in hand, so that means we're only $10,000 short. So there is a slight negative to going ahead, but we need to show movement. So I don't think it's a total negative, but I just want you to be aware of, the way things stand.
I mean, I know in real life.
Yeah.
Believe me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the council, I don't think if we apply for another grant, included the amphitheater, and we apply for another $350,000 grant, I don't think the council is inclined to match another $150,000. Now, if it's 25 or 30,000 for a match, I don't want to speak for anybody, but that would be easier to.
My bigger point in this is, if we were looking for let's call it a $450,000 matching grant before, initially. And what I think I hear you say, that we do diminish that 50-50 scenario potential for the future. Is that not correct in what I'm hearing?
If we apply, it depends on what we apply for, but yes, we diminished how much help we're going to get.
Well, is that, and I totally agree with Dr. Shane. I wish this was started already, and I wish it would start tomorrow. But then again, the year's going to go by just like that.
Yeah.
And we know we're not going to do anything this winter. Nothing will ever happen this winter. I know it, you know it, no matter what you start. You can't even start till you've got some engineering and some town permitting, et cetera, and some environmental issues dealt with. It's going to come. Somebody's going to be unhappy with the water. If something's happened, is it prudent financially, maybe not to try to get all of our ducks in a row this time and really go after that grant in a political way or any way you can think of outside the box on that, because you may be giving up a couple $100,000.
I will tell you it's not prudent.
Well, it's not
You
prudent.
don't count on a grant.
Yeah. Well, one thing too, you look at it. Look at the points.
Tell me again, I want to make sure.
Do not count on the government grant.
Do not count on the government.
If you don't get started with this, I can tell you it's already been too long.
Yeah. Let me restate earlier what I was trying to call attention to. But I'll add something to it. The amphitheater stage and amphitheater lights only got 3 points. So there's a huge feeling that that's not a key member. What I said was earlier too, if you do everything in blue, that's about 350,000. You still have 35,000 left in funds. Okay, so maybe next year instead of applying for the whole shebang, we just apply for ropes and fishing pier. That's much fishing pier, 12.5?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're applying for a $87,000 grant, and half of that is 43.5. We've already got 40,000. We'll get some money. So I think, based on the non-importance or priorities assigned to the stage, amphitheater lights, I think it would be prudent to go ahead and move forward.
Well, we already have several different concert venues up here for the summer, so
Yeah.
that's why I think that one scored a little low, because you've got Fred's Gazebo, you've got Alpin, and you've got the entire summer concert series at the resort.
Okay, but you gotta remember, part of the reason some of us decided on what we thought was most important was keeping in mind, we wanted to get something going right away. And so those other things were low scoring because in thinking about it, they were not as important as campsites, trails, picnic shelters, bathhouses, and parking lots. And so that doesn't mean that we need to throw them away and not think about them in the future. But going back to the grant a minute, you know, these things can be political. And we don't really have any political clout anywhere in the world, if you want to know the truth. We never have, and unless
You would think
Frank
maybe
runs
not.
for governor and gets it or something, or other, I'm not sure that we will, other than asking our we never got around to asking Ray Russell to help us with this. He didn't even know about it, or what's her name, the nice lady that,
Ann Meadows.
no.
No.
Yeah.
Deanna Ballard knew about it, but
Yeah, but-
there's not a lot came from that.
Well, I'm just saying, you know, we got a few things, but it is, Sean will tell you, okay, there were how many applications?
56.
50, and there were 12, they only gave out 12 things, so, you know, it seems like third time around, they ought to at least pay attention to us. And I think it's important not to skip a year. I think we need to get our momentum going, we need to go back and we need to look at it real carefully. Of whatever we submit to them.
We really need to fire with all 6 years going on this thing, and really,
Right.
you gotta have something to show them in June or July of next year. right?
The application, oh, you mean the people?
No, I'm saying the government, if you're going.
The grant, that is due May 1st.
May
May
first.
first, so we don't have a whole lot of time, we just gotta work on it.
We gotta really get something moving there.
Could I mention two things?
Yes, sir.
I like everything you did here. I would hope that you put the campsites and the restrooms in year one if you can.
That's what we
Number
plan on doing.
Yeah.
Number two is, I know the city may not like this, but I feel very comfortable if you had a separate accounting for the funds that are raised and the funds that are given from the city into a separate account that can be drawn on and we can all see what it is and not mingle it with the city accounting principles.
I would agree with that,
Yeah, I think that's a great
It's
idea.
just, but I
definitely.
know I don't know whether the city likes that, but it isn't taking anything away from them, but at least we see it in the pot. And we know what we have left, and rather than just ask the accountant, what do you have left? Or you tell us what we have left, we can all see it
Makes a
together.
very clean accounting method.
It does, and you know,
So
towns,
a designated,
towns usually like to have it in departments and have it done that way. But to be honest with you, you know, if we do this first year project, you know, all the donations are gonna get spent, you know, first, $40,000 is gonna be left, it's gonna be the 40,000 towns money is what's gonna be left out of what we have so far. So
say
that,
that again?
after this first year's project, we're looking at spending 346,000 roughly. And I said we'd have about 40,000 left. The town is gonna put their money in last. So the donations are gonna get spent. The ones we have in hand are gonna get spent this
We're
year.
talking about
Now,
starting,
why is
what
that?
are we calling a year, starting now, or is it January 1 that we start?
Starting from construction, when we start paying bills, when we start paying the bills to go to construction.
So I missed what you said. In other words, first money's out are the raised funds,
Pretty much.
so it's not in a pot. You don't
Well-
have it, I mean.
well, it's all in the pot.
I'm not in favor of that.
The 385 is all in the same pot right now.
But isn't the 200,000 going into the water feature?
No, the water feature, the water feature,
I ended up.
the water feature is in utilities. It's not even in the general
So the
fund.
380 is gonna go into one pot.
Yes,
So that includes the 200.
that includes the 200, yes, sir.
So when you spend the money, it comes out of the 380,
Yes.
not fundraising first and then.
Well,
what the
the
city put in second.
The 380 right now, you want us to set it apart. I think you, sound like what I'm hearing, you just want to make sure people's money is not being spent for other things. It's not. It's not being spent for,
I'm just saying,
um,
we're maybe not presenting.
You would like to
ourselves
see the
well.
350 start going down as we're
I
spending
wanna see the
money.
380,
But no,
whatever it is
exactly
in
where it
one
goes.
pot,
Yeah,
yeah.
and money is spent from that pot.
yeah.
It's
That's
not
no problem.
designated,
We
or
can,
this
it
comes
will.
from the city, that comes from.
we
the
can do
fundraiser.
that monthly. Once the, like I said, the engineering fee is going to be the first one going out, and we can give a monthly update on what we're putting out of that
What I
385.
believe you're
Yeah,
not gonna
that's
say
what
is
I
this, he doesn't want a separate group of numbers over here for donations, and a separate group over here that's going to be supplied by the town. He's saying, put it in, commingle it together, mix it up in a soup, and just write checks out of that.
That's what we're doing, but I don't think he initially wanted that, but hopefully now by everybody understanding that.
That's what I wanted.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, 380 is, that's what we'll do. We'll show 385 and monthly, we'll show what comes out of that. And that's,
And it's
you know,
not designated, we're gonna take it out of the donations part first and leave the towns, because the
You know-
town can fund it and pull it out.
that's tomato. Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to be sarcastic.
No, it isn't tomato and
But-
tomato.
Donations were given
It's
for
all
the
right.
project.
Yes, it's all in one, and it's,
All
I
right.
don't see it any
But
different.
we'll show monthly accounting, 385 minus,
The money will be put in by the towns.
Yes.
He's really saying, and I'm asking the same thing,
yes.
along with the donations, to be commingled. They won't be separated in any
No.
fashion whatsoever.
Nope.
Makes it easy.
So if we come up with a plan, I think it would be a really good idea to try and do a fundraiser on top of this, that we have breaking ground or
Not
something. Not yet? Wait
I
until
think I
spring?
agree with you.
Not until after, you won't see, not until you get a 3D vision of what's out
As
there.
much as you thought.
Yeah.
Mm,
They gave less than 100 probably total.
okay.
And I gave, I think Paul O'Connell and I gave like just $60,000 of that.
Okay.
So
Then,
you
yeah.
have, you,
Well,
they-
maybe
I
even
think
just
the
put in our
community has to see
newsletters then.
something.
Just, we need to put the word out that we're,
It kind of depends on where we are next May and June. If we've got a lot of stuff out of the ground,
If you can get.
then
people-
maybe we'll have a July fundraiser.
Not
If,
only that, if you get to the point where people can almost go there and use it,
yeah.
if you can do that, you're one, that's great. If you can't, you can't.
Unless something happens wrong with the world, by next spring and summer, this should be usable. What's in blue should be
It
usable.
needs to be, for two reasons.
This should
For
be-
doctors and as well as-
Usable. It should be operational.
You think you'd have campsites on
Oh, yes. By next springtime, this should be good to go.
it? Someone get a tape on that?
Uh,
You got it?
Yeah. I mean,
Well, you can have the blue done.
I'm thinking, well, so let's say May and June.
Hope it doesn't snow.
Because, yeah, May and June. The design will happen in the winter. We'll award bids probably in March or April for a start date in May. So, yeah, and the campsite's gonna be usable. Now, you know, initially will the campsites be usable without bathrooms until we get the bathrooms finished? Possibly.
I gotta tell you though, when you've got what I call public things going on a work site, that's a nightmare in itself too, so be real careful with
Then you don't do that. But
Yeah.
do it, what I'm saying is, do it right the first time. Don't cut corners.
Well, you got money, you can go down there right now in the next little bit and figure out your parking lot. I mean, we keep talking about the engineering and stuff, but, you know,
And maybe you
well,
could,
Dr. Shane and I could go down there and show you where the parking lot should go.
Well, the parking lot should go, but now that is a little bit more complicated than that.
I
You
would
also
be-
have to have, as Frank mentioned, the drainage. There may have to be some
But I'm
stuff
saying
moved
get it
around.
started.
there's a lot of adjustments you're gonna find.
It's not just going in there and marking out 22 parking spaces.
That's a low-level area, so
Yeah.
you need the ground
You need a
preparation.
good civil engineer who understands everything.
Can we
we're
get
talking
somebody
about.
that'll pay attention to us and get it done sooner than later though, because
Well, what we're gonna do is,
everybody's busy right now doing a lot of stuff.
the same folks who are engineering the water feature, I think will be interested in engineering the rest of this. McGill,
Are they civil engineers or structural engineers?
they're both, they've got both on staff. It's McGill out of Asheville, but they've got offices all over, they've got office in Boone.
It's important that that coordination be coordinated properly.
Is there a way that you can communicate with us like every 3 months or 6 months?
I should be able to do it.
A financial, a little statement to what was put out?
Yeah, we can do that.
What's accomplished
We can do that.
quarterly or something like that. And I think someone came up with a question, I said, gee, I never thought about that. What happens if people from Old Beach Mountain, I don't know what you call not resort Beach Mountain Park, want to come over and use the park, or
They can
other
use it.
people want to use it?
It's a public facility.
Yeah, they can use
So
it.
that people can come from Banner Elk and use it, that's what you like to encourage it
Now,
to be utilized.
I think on the campsites, just so we control a little bit better, we'll probably have a $25 campsite fee, so we'll charge for the camping.
Oh, yes.
minimum, you know, not enough to discourage anybody, but enough for accountability. But as far as coming over and using it for the day trippers, all day long, anywhere they can drive to from.
We're gonna have to write a real tight policy for camping. I mean,
Limit the
I'm in
days.
favor of them, you know, buying a recreation Buckeye pass to be able to do it. And, you know, we're not looking for people to come off Interstate 77 to come here and camp for the night. We want the people that are here to be able to use it and whatever. But in order to do that, the people need to jump through one or two little hoops so they'll appreciate the fact that what this is.
And we're gonna limit this to 2-night camping.
2 nights.
Two
okay.
nights.
Need to limit that.
It's not supposed to be so somebody can
No
get a
squatting.
homestead for a week or two.
Right,
No.
right.
It needs to be permit only. That
Oh,
way
definitely.
we can watch it, the police can watch it too.
Yeah, before, so I'm taking it that the items in blue, there is a consensus to go ahead and move forward with that.
I agree.
Okay, that includes the site prep, engineering, street lights, parking lot, restrooms, campsites.
I'm for that.
Okay, now if you want general questions, I just wanna make sure I'm not gonna ask about that again, we're moving forward on that.
But,
Oh, yeah.
so the question is, the engineer though, what are we gonna ask the engineer to lay out?
We'll take the design out there, and we'll meet with them on site, and then we'll say we want construction documents to bid this out as soon as possible.
For what though?
For
Parking lot?
the parking lot,
Bathroom.
bathrooms. We also want pads for the picnic
The
shelters
campsites.
and pads for these other activities, even though we're not gonna bid them out. We want them included in site prep.
Right.
So they'll prep, if there's any grading that has to be done to allow for the picnic shelters, we'll get the grading done.
So if you decide that you have funding for the ropes course, the ropes course contractor just comes in and puts it up.
Yeah.
There'll be, that guy's gonna come over and say, if you want a ropes course in the future, this is exactly where I'm gonna put it, and you reserve that spot.
And I've already had him do that aspect of it. I would kind of like to get him back out here. Again, last time he just gave me an estimate of what it would be. I would like to see a little bit more hard number.
Right.
What if it comes in way under what he was originally thinking?
We'll be
Yeah.
thinking.
You never know.
But go first class on a ropes course.
Oh yeah, no,
Don't make
this
it
company
a
does really good
big
work.
ropes.
So.
Are
Big
you
ropes.
planning, expansion of the campsites? Because I have a feeling this is going to end up being very popular.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Well, it would, you know, if we could do 4 to start with,
Five,
and when you look at this, or 5, and when you look at this deal, I don't know how many are in here.
7.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, they got a little overzealous.
There's 7 in
You're
here.
throwing the wrong side of the creek though.
Well,
It's not when we're on the side. When we went, Tim, myself, and Sean Day,
One after you.
we identified areas that we're going to clean right now.
Mhm.
But then we also even kind of said, ooh, that could be another spot, this could be another spot, and we didn't just stay within this, we started thinking out of the box and leading off to where the trail is going to go as well, so, yes, I think developing
Okay.
for the roomings.
There could be some campsites off Shane Outpost proper and just along the trail.
Just as long as the
Make room for
engineer
expansion.
realizes that there could be
Wouldn't that be nice?
more
if-
expansion.
okay, we don't have to worry about that, or do we, for the trail, that you want to get started right away as far as engineering?
No, you should, I don't think
I mean,
they should, because really where the trail's going to come through isn't even on this map.
Right.
It's going to come over here on the corner of the lake.
On this, but this is coming back here.
If he comes through here, also, we've got the bridge. that
Well, I don't know. I
currently
thought
exists.
his-
He could,
This trail was this green thing coming around here.
yeah, again, that was, the conceptual map that Destination by Design did early on. If we don't do that trail, then he may just tie it in with the existing bridge, but clean up, the.
You're talking about the bridge right here,
Yes. Yeah, the
coming
bridge
around,
that's already
coming
there.
around, okay.
And then, because I mean, still, there's a
Well,
trail.
I was just thinking,
that goes through that park
I
right
felt this was gonna be the deal all along, having looked at, for the hiking trail. And, but maybe you don't want the hiking there,
And
but
also,
that's,
there's road to low ropes course on that side, and I don't see any way.
So y'all have individual credit. Dr. Shane, do y'all want to keep on meeting, or do you want to adjourn and ask questions? I would say, what we're gonna give you from now on, we'll give you an update when we've engaged the engineer. We'll give you an update showing, we're starting out at this dollar amount, and then either every 30 days or every 60 days, whatever change, we'll show you the funds as they go out.
Thank you so much.
Does anybody ever have any questions? I mean,
When's the next meeting?
I ain't scheduled it yet. Do y'all want to, probably, after we talk to the engineers, late June, no, we'll have, let's see, today is October 16th, I can talk to engineers. Do y'all want to meet, before we get the engineer's proposal back or after?
I think we ought to have a meeting and have the engineer come to us and make sure he
Okay,
understands that we're prodding him
okay.
to get it done. I mean, I don't know.
Or at least
I
a couple of
Don't you
people,
all?
a couple of people from the rec committee should have a sit down with this guy, because I'm gonna tell you, you don't ever want to just let a guy take a piece of land and have his own imagination that after you've been a year trying to put your own formula.
Well, we gotta count on these two guys being part of that, but I think some of the rest of us would like to have a part in
That's
it
what I'm
too.
saying, someone like yourself.
Well, how about this? Why don't, Sean and I meet with the engineers to start with, and then after we meet with them, we'll have a meeting with, what do we volunteer, Fred, Chris, and Frank? And so you'll be in the second.
You might do anybody on the rec committee, really.
Well, I wanna make sure,
Promise, make sure they don't talk too much.
I wanna make sure we have somebody
Rec
from,
committee.
we know, see, this is joint of the rec committee and finance, so
Yeah.
I would prefer to have one of the finance people and one of the, because
And that's
there
your
there are slightly different visions. So I want to make sure I've got the financial side vision with the rec vision. They share a lot of commonalities, but
Pretty much, you
Well,
know.
Fred's point and the doctor's point's really the most important point we've talked about today.
And I think we're in,
Until we see something,
Yeah.
we're still spinning our wheels in a ditch. And if we're gonna move forward with this,
Yeah.
let's knock the barriers down and kick the door open and let's start doing it. And because I think the momentum will stall until we get something physically going where people will drive by there, going over to have dinner at the fish fry during the summer
Yeah.
or whatever, to see something going on and the people that are visiting the lake, just the normal people who visit. I just think it's important that
Riley has down on his computer that the mighty Jim said that we'll have good stuff by spring. I don't know.
why don't we kind of theoretically just say, we maybe look at mid-December for a meeting, and whether
too
it's
far out.
too far out.
Mid-October.
Well, we see, Sean and I need to meet with the engineers once before we meet with you guys, because I'm sure the engineers they're going to want to come back to you speaking intelligently from their standpoint. They don't want to come in kind of not know, they want to be prepared. So I'm thinking in November is when we meet with it, when staff meets with engineers, and December is when they come meet with
Why
you
would it
guys.
take 30 days to get a meeting with an engineer?
I'm giving myself plenty of time.
I mean, engineers that want to work for you, you pay their bills. Somebody needs to shake a little tree.
I'm a little leery about the fact, I think those of us working on it, you too, instead of you all having to meet separately with those guys, I think we could all meet together and listen to what you all had to say and then interject a little bit and then say one meeting.
Well, the thing about it is, when we say one meeting, we're asking the engineers for a proposal. So if you guys come to the first meeting, they are not going to have their proposal ready for that first meeting.
Well-
That's what I'm saying. Now, if you just want input and them to hear you,
Well, no,
we can bring them for them to hear you, but they will not, on the first time out of the gate, will not have the proposal ready.
no, it's gonna take a little while, we understand that.
So, but now, like I said, if y'all want to meet with them in 2 weeks, For just a meet and greet?
I have great trust in Tim and the rec center, but if you guys want to meet with them yourselves, that's fine too, but I'm sure they're going to act in our best interest.
We just wanna get it going, so whatever it takes, whatever you think best. And, if I think it's going too slow, I'm gonna let you know.
well, here's what we'll do. We'll meet with engineers and then we'll schedule a date. I was just trying to keep it, monthly. If we can do it, in November, we'll do it in November.
Well, you're right, it's gonna
Let you
take a
know
little
you've got a
while.
few people that's got a pitchfork and they're kind of poking you in the rear end.
Yeah.
Get them off dead center, because the holidays are coming up. Everybody's got 183 excuses for why I can't get there until 3 weeks anyway.
Yeah.
Then throw in the Thanksgiving holidays, the Christmas holidays, the New Year's holidays. I mean, I'm out of town for 2 weeks. I mean, this happens all the time. So be a little more persuasive about you're the client and to treat you as such, to to get up here and meet with us.
We'll expedite it.
Because the timing on this.
We're paying big bucks, if we can't find somebody who's gonna play ball with us in a timely manner, we need to move on.
I agree with
Well,
that.
we've got 3 or 4 different engines. I'm sure I'll have, they'll come up.
So for adjournment?
Did we, what did we kind of conclude? You're gonna meet with the,
We're still, I think it's best for me and Sean to meet with them initially, because they don't, appear to not know what's going on. And then, within Sean and I's meeting with them, either a week or 2 weeks later, send out an email to maybe the group that's here today and say, y'all want to meet with us and, see their draft proposal or something like that.
okay,
But as far as, Dr. Shane, if you want to adjourn the meeting, and if everybody has some questions, we're good to go.
I adjourn.
so, move, wait a minute, can I would just like to know what who could I ask what the present amount is?
Rebecca, but she's going to have to look it up, because like I said, I don't even have it off the top of my head.
But you're gonna give us a quarterly statement.
Quarter, I'll give you a quarterly
budget
statement.
and what we said, get a financial statement.
Rebecca's in today, but
Sure, yeah, great.
yeah, her dad's actually better. Yeah, his medicine is a little messed up. They thought we were going to have to give him a
I
pacemaker.
saw your picture.
But they're not. Oh, let me,